Welcome to the Recovery Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abassi. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. Welcome to a new week, a short week. Yesterday, I recorded, lost my train of thought, and kept rolling. And then when I actually uploaded it, I never removed that section, but I was like, like after I uploaded it and realized it hours later that I did that, I was like, you know what? It's fine. I mean, I started out this podcast saying that I don't cut anything out. And since then, there have been times that I so abruptly lost my train of thought, and my head was hurting and all that stuff that I cut that part out because it was very awkward. This one was awkward too, and I thought about going back and taking it out today, but there's a level of trust in my audience that I can do really whatever I need to do. And to go back and edit that out impacts my head, which is already, I've been having like some sharp pains over the past 2 days. I think it's because um, of some activities I did this weekend, but because I've already been not feeling quite right, I think that it's not worth it for me to go back and take that out. So I trust you all, and that's what our topic is today. Um, so just to back up and tell you though, what I did on Sunday. I went to the Expo Center in Chantilly, Virginia, and to a Christmas market. And it's like crafters, and there's so many, and it's huge. And I wanted so badly to go. So I met a couple people, no, one person. There were a couple people that were going to go, but just my sponsor came. So we met up and we walked around, and then I took a couple breaks in between, and we had some lunch, but I think I pushed myself too far just because I wanted so badly to do it. So I'm kind of, it usually takes about 4 days for me to get back to a a comfortable place in my head, meaning I don't have a lot of pain and discomfort. So, if I, the littlest things that I do during this time of recovering from doing an activity that was a little too much for me, um, I have a very low tolerance for doing things. So even recording this episode, I'm having, if you notice, I keep shutting my eye because I'm having some pain over here behind my eye, like in my right side of my head. So, I unfortunately, it's my new norm, and it's what I have to deal with, and I still want to do the things that I enjoy and that I want to do. And I have this fine line of where I am willing to cross it, and keep doing what I want to do to get it done. And this podcast is one of those, like, this podcast is one of those things that no matter how terrible I felt in the early days of this recovery about over a year ago, I was willing to do it anyway. In the beginning, I didn't have my camera on because my eyes were so difficult to use. Um, Now I still look over the camera and I'm looking at a wall. That's what I'm looking at because that's the easiest thing for me to not hurt my head is to look at a blank white wall. So that's what I'm looking at when I'm looking over the computer. I'm not looking at, you're not missing anything over here. I'm looking at a blank white wall. Um, So, anyway, all that being said, I trust you all that I'm allowed to make mistakes, you know, I'm allowed to do things like record me going, I don't even know what I'm talking about. I believe is what I said. I don't even know what I'm talking about. And I just stopped and like I stretched and then I was like, okay, regroup. And then I started talking again. So, whatever. Right. So, today, I wanted to talk about trust, not because that happened, but because that was the topic this morning. And there was a lot of correlations that were drawn this morning, relating trust to different things like empathy and trust related to our fears and trust related to love and trust related to motives. So, I wanted to talk through that. I just have some notes here, so I'm really going off the cuff. But the first thing that we talked about, or that came up in the reading this morning, we read from As Bill Sees It, and which is an AA related book. And there's topics that you can find in the table of contents and then there's reading specific to that topic. So trust was the one that we read about, and one of the first reading, or the first reading that we read from, talked about relating trust to love and motives. So when I think about relating trust to love and motives, I think about my husband. And I have always felt as though I'm a trust, I trust people. I don't have a problem with trust. I was going to say a trustworthy person. I am today, but I wasn't when I was drinking. So, do I trust my husband? Yes. I would say I trust him with my life. And I trust him with my children's lives, even. And that's a pretty big level of trust. However, when I think about the relationship between trust and taking advice, it seems like I must have trust issues. I've never thought I did. Like, I have run across so many people in my life who have said to me, I've got major trust issues. Not me. They have major trust issues. And I'm like, huh, yeah, I don't have any trust issues. That's how I've always responded. But there is this level of trust that is required when we take advice from people. And for some reason, I am defiant when it comes to taking advice. I as much as I want to come across as somebody who appreciates advice and recognizes my need for outside help, I put up a wall when somebody's trying to give me advice. My immediate reaction when somebody's trying to give me advice is no, you're wrong. Or or maybe not you're wrong, but no, that's not what I should do. No, I know my life better. No, I know myself better than you do. No, that's what comes to mind when I think of anybody giving me advice, but I want to hone in on my husband because it's something I've been really working on over the past year. And the reason why is number one, because it's important that I improve that for our relationship. But Boris just stretched like super cute. He's on my lap. Um, but also because I need him. So in my stroke recovery, this has given me an entire new perspective on this need for outside help. I truly didn't know what was best for me over the past year and a half. I can't believe it's been that long, but over the past year and a half, I can look back and say with confidence, I did not know what was best for me because I didn't even understand what is wrong with me, my disability. And as my husband has been observing me, he can see visually how I react to different situations. Um, an example is we go over to my mother-in-law's and so his nephews and his brother and they're all over there. This was this was several months ago. And the nephews are rather small. I mean, yeah, I don't want to say maybe like 8 or 10 and 6 or something like that. Anyway, the younger one was running around. And before we went, my husband expressed his concern about the activity there, about me being able to withstand having that many people there. And there really wasn't. There was just us and these two boys and the parents, his brother and his wife. And I was looking at the situation like, it's fine. I'm totally fine when I go over there. And so he doesn't really have a choice other than to let me uh, expose myself to something that's not good for me. Because if not, I won't trust that he knows better for my well-being. And what ended up happening, uh, about halfway through, I felt extremely ill and had to lay down. Like in front of everybody, I was like, I have to lay down like immediately. And I went and laid on the couch, and then he had to take me home because I couldn't withstand the movement of the younger one who was barely doing anything. He was just playing with toys and stuff. But I couldn't handle it. My head started hurting and then I became nauseous. And it happened so fast that there's nothing I can do. I can't stop it from being triggered once it has been. And I had to lay down. So why do I not trust in his advice that is really just him looking out for my well-being? Why do I think that I know better? Why am I so defiant against my own disability? Um, it's like one thing I heard this morning was about bouncing between trust and truth. Um, I trust my husband, but am I willing to really look at the truth about my disability? You know, um, I can trust him all day long and I can take his advice. But if I believe a different truth than he does about my disability, then my trust is null and void. It doesn't mean anything. Um, and I think that's the correlation between trust and accepting other people's help, outside help, is is trusting somebody, but only up until the edge of their own truth. Um, So that's interesting to think about. And another thing I heard this morning that really resonated with me was that idea of being defiant. Um, and I don't think it's a purposeful, defiant. Defiance is definitely comes across as a negative reaction, but it's almost like innocence, an innocent defiance. It's really just um, resistance to looking at my own truth and being honest with myself, being honest that things I've really been challenged with being honest about what hurts and what doesn't hurt my head. If I were to relate that to alcoholism and my craving, I would be comparing it to being honest with myself about what sets off a craving and what doesn't. What sets off a feeling of jealousy when I see other people drinking? What triggers my discomfort when I'm around people drinking? Because to this day, I still have that trigger where I don't really want to be around people that are drinking. And it's not because I feel like I'm better than them. I mean, it's far from that. It's because quite the opposite, that I recognize that I have a problem and I cannot enjoy myself if I'm around people that are drinking, social drinking, meaning they're drinking more than they would if they just had a glass with their meal. Like that doesn't bother me as much, but I still have, and maybe I always will have this feeling of jealousy that they don't have the disease that I do. It's the same as me being jealous that I can't go to the movies and you can. It's the same to me. All of that is the same. And what I was reminded of this morning is with my sobriety, I got to go through, not had to go, I got to go through the process of the steps in order to build an understanding of my disease and who I am without the alcohol. I had to get to know myself and I had to build a trust within myself and with the people in the program. Um, I had to build a trust that enabled me to share my deepest, darkest secrets with my sponsor and build a trust that allowed me to get vulnerable in my shares in meetings. And that requires a global trust of the program and everybody in it. And um, when I think about my trust in that, that came fairly easy for me. There is a level of trust that is not very difficult for me, and that is that idea of being an open book. Um, I feel like I'm an open book for the most part. I really do. I mean, I wouldn't be able to do this podcast if I didn't have that feeling that I was an open book. Um, are there things that I don't share about in this podcast? Absolutely. I don't want to call them secrets because there are people in the world who know about them, but it's not something that I feel comfortable talking about on the podcast. Um, if I'm being completely honest, sometimes I wish that I would share those or could share those because they would resonate even deeper with my audience. That, yeah, this is the kind of some of the gross stuff that I've done in my life. And I think it would be helpful to others if I shared about that stuff. I don't share about it, not because of you, my audience, but because of my family. That's why I don't share about it because um I don't think it's fair to my family for me to talk about things that impacted them. You know what I mean? So maybe you don't know what I mean, and that's fine. You don't have to know what I mean. But where there are things involved that bring in the people I love, I don't think it's fair for me to talk about it because it's not just my business, it's their business too. So many different layers of trust and how it correlates to our emotions and our relationships. Um, Another thing that I heard about this morning was the correlation between empathy and trust. And I haven't put any thought into that this morning. What is the relationship between empathy and trust? And I think it's something that I I typically get vulnerable. I think this is why I feel like I don't have a trust issue because I will get vulnerable and be an open book because I'm like pre-empathetic because I know that I'm not unique and there are other people that have experienced the same things that I have experienced. It might be in a different shape or color, but it's still a similar experience. And I'm pre-empathetic to my audience because I need to be. I need to have that pre-empathy. If that even makes sense to you, it makes sense to me, but that pre-empathy in order to trust. I I believe that people that we're all human beings, imperfect human beings, and I can empathize with other people. And I believe that if I empathize first, that I'm opening the door for others to trust me. So when I was working in my career, I was a director and I had a team under me. And one of the things that I was very adamant about was sharing that I'm a recovering alcoholic. And the reason why is because I wanted my team to trust me. And I felt like what better way to trust them but to tell them about one of the most difficult thing, if not I mean, other than my stroke now, I've got two, and I don't know which one was more difficult to deal with. But sharing one of the most vulnerable states I've been in my life. That's how I can gain trust. And it worked immediately because I cried when I would tell them that I am a recovering alcoholic. I got very emotional in front of the whole team because I wanted them to know that this is real shit, that I am a real person underneath this director role, underneath this company that I work for, this team. Like, I'm a real person, and I know that you're a real person. And I want to share with you the parts of me that aren't your business, because there may be a time in the future that you might need to share with me something that's not my business because it's impacting your professional um, life, because it's all intertwined. So that's how I would correlate trust with empathy. And then finally, another correlation that came up is our fears, trust and fears. So I'll look at that for a moment. When I did my step 4, which is for those of you not in sobriety, step 4 is where we're writing down our resentments, people that we're pissed off at. That's how I summarize it. Well, when I wrote down the people that I'm pissed off at, after I wrote down that I'm pissed off at them and what I'm pissed off at them for, then my job was to go back through them and write down what my role has been in my relationship with that person. And when I did that, what I saw across the board, 100% was my fear of abandonment. That was the fear that was behind all of my resentments, every single one of them. It was fascinating to see that about myself. You know, I was 42 when I got sober, and I did not see, I was blind to the fact that I had this deep rooted fear of abandonment. And that absolutely, when I correlate that with trust, that's absolutely what created the resentments. You know, it was fear of abandonment impacted my ability to trust because I didn't want to go all in on somebody because I was afraid they were going to go away and they'd never come back. That's what I talked to my addiction counselor about for 2 years. It was they people go away and they never come back. Um, and what my addiction counselor opened up the door for me to see was that they never come back because I'm not reaching out to them. Like I have a role in my relationship with other people. So I've had a lot of many relationships, um, family, friends, uh, where I was loving wholly and fully, and the person went away and they never came back, quote unquote. And so that made me not want to go all in on anyone else again. Um, I had a neighbor that I got really close with, and then she was getting ready to move. And my reaction to that was I pulled the band-aid off. I just stopped talking to her. I wasn't rude. It was what I did was I shut down. Like if I look back at it and see what was happening, I shut down because I didn't want to feel the pain. I didn't want to feel the fear, and the sadness correlated to being abandoned. And what what I was able to see after talking to this addiction therapist for so long was that the people aren't going away. if you are putting in the effort to stay connected to them. You know, when my children went to college, it just supported the idea that people go away and they never come back. So when my son went away to college, which was right before I got sober, let me see. I th or right when I got sober. I think he went away right before I got sober, if I'm not mistaken. So if you're listening, son, I apologize for not knowing the exact date. I know you don't care, but I care. Um, when my son left for college, it was devastating for me. Devastating. I know it's devastating for parents, but for me, it was proving that no matter who it is in my life, they're going to go away and they're never going to come back. And my reaction was to rip off the Band-Aid. And in that case, I didn't call my son. And I will, I think, forever be regretful of that. I don't know how to work through my regret for reacting that way, but it was because of this deep rooted fear of abandonment. And when my addiction counselor talked to me about my role, I started to pick up the phone again and I started to put that trust in my relationship with my child. You know, it it almost makes me nauseous to think about the fact that I felt like I was supposed to pull out of that. I was afraid. I was afraid of the incredible amount of pain that comes with when our children leave, you know, and we're left as empty nesters. And it was it was really, I don't use this word very often, but it was a profound lesson for me that I am the one and I am the only one who can mend and reverse that fear of abandonment with the people I love. I have to pick up the phone. I have to put in the work in order to keep the relationship, to keep the trust that was built within a relationship with my loved ones. So that's what I have today. And yay, I don't have any quiet time that I have to edit out or feel stupid about. Because I did, I was like, I was panicking a little bit yesterday. I was like, I don't know. I mean, that's terrible. I wonder what I looked like and all that stuff. But who cares? You know, who cares? That's what I'm doing here. I'm coming here and getting vulnerable because I trust that that's what needs to happen in order to connect with other people. So who knows if that awkward silence yesterday connected with another person? Who knows? But I'm willing to do whatever it takes in order to help people not feel alone. So thank you for listening and showing up for me today and for yourself. I will talk to you tomorrow.